5 children, innocent children. So therefore, he should be given the death penalty, because that will help to eradicate his bad karma. When the death penalty, helps in the murderer getting rid of his karma. Otherwise, he would have to suffer for lifetimes and lifetimes. So Krishna, Bhima, and Arjuna, they were all pushing for killing him. But Draupadi, being a very, very soft-hearted woman, she had her own arguments where she didn't want Ashwatthama to be killed on the basis that he was the son of the Brahmana, as well as the son of their teacher Dronacharya, who they owed a lot because he taught them, the different skills as Kshatriyas. So the Krishna, as an expert mediator, always, he gave them he told Arjuna that you will have to now satisfy everyone. And Arjuna did so by not really killing him, but taking out his jewel from his head, which is it was a long story of how he got that jewel, and also cutting his hair, halfway, in a very awkward way. And this was a great insult for a Kshatriya. Ashwatthama felt very, very insulted, and he was driven out of the camp. So they saved his life, yet it was almost like they killed him, but yet they did not kill him. So Krishna, in a very expert way, he empowered his devotee Arjuna to solve that problem, where he satisfied everybody. Because Arjuna really had taken a vow that he would catch Ashwatthama, and so that Draupadi would see, bring back his head and things like that. He had taken a vow, but in this way, everybody was satisfied. And so Dronacharya, son Ashwatthama, who acted very, very cruelly, was spared his life. And then everybody would think that the story ended there, but not really, because all the Pandavas and their relatives, they went to the shore they went to the Ganges to bathe in the Ganges and to mourn for the death of their relatives. And it was, as you can imagine, it was such a huge mourning, because everybody, the Kaurava side and the Pandava side, they were all related with each other. So they were all mourning for the loss of the lives all together. Even Gandhari, the mother of the 100 sons, the head of, the chief was Duryodhan. She had lost all her 100 sons. And so she was there as well. And in this way, they were taking care of all that, doing the last rites of the departed souls. And then Krishna came, they came back, all of them, feeling very, very despondent. And Krishna started preparing to go to Dwarka. His job in Hastinapur had finished. He had, he was with his dear devotees, the Pandavas. And it's a beautiful story of Krishna's participation in this, not in the war exactly, but in how he was with the Pandavas through all their trials, and how he was willing to become the servant of his Pandava, of his devotees, where he served as the chariot driver of Arjuna, as well as a messenger. And this whole saga, saga of how everything led to the war is just a very beautiful, fascinating story of showing how Krishna's, his devotion to his devotees is unparalleled. That's why he's known as Bhakta Vatsal, because Krishna in this form, as Krishna, is very much shows that how he can be controlled by the love of his devotees. And as he was preparing to go, then Uttara, we'll hear that in this chapter, how Uttara came running towards Krishna, asking for help, because there was a Brahmastra that was coming very fast towards her, and especially heading towards her womb. And she was pregnant with Parikshit. Parikshit was the last remaining heir in the Pandava dynasty. and he was very and she was very, very afraid. And she did not care about her own life, but she wanted her embryo to be saved. And Krishna immediately took action, and he and as they saw the Brahmastra coming, Krishna invoked his Sudarshan disc, by which he entered the womb of Uttara. And it's said that Krishna entered the womb in a very small, the size of a thumb. That's how tiny he was, but his features were very, very pronounced. Where Parikshit, Parikshit means the examiner. So he saw the form of the Lord within the womb very clearly, and that is the form of the Lord that he was always looking for, was always trying to find in his life, because it left his vision after Krishna entered Uttara's womb and saved him from this disaster. He came whirling his club and took away all the heat of the Brahmastra. You must have heard last week in class how the Brahmastra is a nuclear weapon, but is much more powerful than the atomic nuclear weapons of today, and how it was invoked by mantras, and it would only target the people that it wanted to target and did not destroy other things, innocent things on the way, or innocent citizens. So after that, when Uttara's embryo was saved, Krishna again wanted to leave and sat on his chariot, and Kunti, she came running, and why? Because she did not want Krishna to leave. So in this chapter, we see the beautiful prayers of Queen Kunti, which are very, very famous. These are prayers that even Paramahansas, they worship. The Queen Kunti as such an exalted devotee, and these are prayers of great devotion and love that's coming from her heart. And it also shows how she is such an exalted devotee, because she gets to see Krishna in a very, very unique relationship as her nephew. So she's related to Krishna, but also she understands who Krishna is. In other words, she sees Krishna as his nephew, but she also understands his godhood. So we see in the world today that how people, they may know who God is, but they really don't understand godhood. They don't understand really the power and position of God, right? They really don't exactly understand who God is. Prabhupada used to say that people know God, they know that there is a God, but how great he is, people don't know. And that we get from Srimad Bhagavatam, the first 9 cantos, right? It's all about the Krishna's godhood, who he actually is, that is explained. And so people they may know God. And so when they know Krishna as God, especially in India, you see that. When they know Krishna as God, but they don't really exactly understand how great he is, his position as God, then they tend to not really understand him. In other words, they really don't understand him. They see him as an ordinary person. That's why we see movies there where Krishna is depicted as a, charming boy who's, having, lovers relationship with the gopis and things like that. So they don't really quite understand. Unless we go through the first 9 cantos, we really don't get who Krishna really is and his position. But then there are people who know who God is, but they also understand his godhood, right? And that's where Kunti, she understands Krishna's position very, very thoroughly. That even though he's standing there in front of her as her nephew, but yet she's first glorifying him as being the creator, as being the controller, being invisible, being all-pervading as well as localized. So she's glorifying him in many, many different ways. And then, of course, the next higher stage than that is those of Rajvasis, who actually they forget his godhood, right? They don't care to really know Krishna's godhood. Now that relationship, Kunti also glorifies in these prayers as being very, very, of being the very, very high. So, so Kunti is not an ordinary person. She's seeing Krishna face to face. Now, to see Krishna face to face is not an ordinary thing. We must understand that, because we see in the Bhagavatam so many places where, for example, in the first canto, you must have already read that. I'm not sure, but I think it was in chapter 4, where Narad Muni, when he leaves home and goes to the forest, after his mother dies, she gets bitten by a snake. He leaves home, and then he goes to the forest and he sits down in a tree to meditate, just the way he was taught by the sages in the ashram. And due to his sincere practice that he learned, Krishna appeared within the lotus of his heart, right? But then what did Krishna say? What did Krishna say? Anybody remembers who attended those classes? Anyone remembers what Krishna said at that point? She said, "My dear Narad, I'm really..."
Krishna appeared and said that, you can see me now, but in this lifetime, you cannot see me after this. Just the sound came and told that Krishna was speaking, and as a small boy in Ardhamani in his previous life could see the Lord only once, and not anymore after that.
Yes. Yeah, you won't be able to see me because you still have some work to do. In other words, there's still some purification left, right? So in his next birth, he became Narad Muni, and he was able to see Krishna face to face. So in other words, it's not an ordinary thing to see Krishna face to face. And there's many other stories in the Bhagavatam where we can think of, where the difference between seeing Krishna within the heart or seeing within one's mind and feeling very, very ecstatic versus seeing Krishna face to face, right? Anybody knows any other stories like that? The difference? Maybe the story of Dhruva, I was thinking, how he how he saw the Lord within the heart, when he was pressing the earth down, and, and he saw the Lord within the heart, and he was feeling very blissful. And then suddenly the Lord, that vision was lost to him, and he saw Krishna face to face, right? And that the experience of him seeing face to face was very, very, he was very ecstatic, and he actually, all his material contamination was taken away. So when a person sees Krishna face to face, he doesn't have anything left in terms of material contamination. Now, to see Krishna within the heart, there's still material contamination still that needs to be worked on, like we saw in the case of Narad Muni, right? Krishna said, you still have work to do. He was seeing the Lord within the lotus of his heart, right? But yet, Krishna said, you have work to do. But when somebody sees Krishna face to face, that work is done. It's the highest pinnacle of Prema Bhakti. And this is what we are doing in Nectar of Devotion, right? How Prema Bhakti is at the very topmost, where all material contamination is gone. So these Pandavas are not ordinary people, they're interacting with Krishna. They're sitting with him, they're eating with him, they're giving orders to Krishna. He's acting like a messenger, so the Pandavas, including Queen Kunti, they are very, very exalted souls. Even Prahlad Maharaj, if he was meditating on he was always remembering the Lord, right, within his heart all the time. He was thinking of the Lord. And his remembrance was so much that when Hiranyakashipu tried to kill him, in many different ways, it didn't deter him. It didn't make any difference to him, right? But Krishna didn't really intimately deal with him, right? Krishna was not there with Prahlad every day and talking to him or eating with him and things like that. So we can see that what is the position of these Pandavas? What is the position of Queen Kunti? It's not ordinary. In order to appreciate her prayers, we have to understand who Queen Kunti was. She's not an ordinary soul. She has the great fortune of having the Lord as her nephew and the Lord in front of her, coming to her help at every stage in her life. The story of Queen Kunti from the Mahabharata is said that she was, when she was little, her father the king, he had a very close friend, and he did not have any child. So he really wanted a child, a daughter, and so her father gave Kunti to him, and he raised her. So she was raised in this dynasty called Kunti Bhoja, and that's why her name became Kunti Bhoja. Kunti, I'm sorry. So she was a very charming girl, very young, sweet, charming girl, and she was full of very amazing qualities. And now she was the daughter of a very, very powerful, wealthy king, right? But her mood was very, very intensely of one of service, of doing menial service. She was no, so whoever would come, all the saintly people would come, she would serve them in such an exemplary way that they would give their blessings. Now, this is very amazing. You know how to be a princess like that and to be so powerful, so opulent in such an opulent, but yet to have that mood of service, right? So this is a very amazing quality. And so what happened is one day when Durvasa Muni came, then she served him so nicely that Durvasa Muni became very charmed with her service, and he blessed and gave her a boon that whenever you call any one of the demigods, they'll come and they'll give you what you want. And so she was a little girl actually, and she thought, well, this is kind of nice. And so one day, as the sun was rising, and there was a beautiful scene there, and so she started praying to the sun god, and immediately the sun god Vivaswan appeared in front of her, and and asked her that, what would you like? What can I give you? And she says, no, I was just appreciating the sun. I don't need anything. And she said, no, I'm going to give you a child. And she got really perturbed. She said, well, I'm young. I'm not even married. What will people say if they hear that I have a child? He says, don't worry. You will still remain a virgin. So there will be no problem. And so he gave her a son, and everybody can guess who that son was. Who was the son?
Karna.
Karna. Yes, very good. Yes. Now, Karna was her firstborn. And so you can imagine, I know I have two boys, and I know the firstborn is always the firstborn, So there's something between the mother and the firstborn, it's just like a very strong, I think it's more the dependency type feeling, like he's your firstborn. So Kunti's was her heart. When she saw him, she was feeling so much motherly love. Now, the child came not through normal process, that one gets a child, but yet those emotions were still there. Those emotions and those things were still there. It was just done in a very miraculous way. And this is very normal in among the demigods. They don't go through the pain of birth for 9 months. All those painful things are not there in the demigod planets. So this is very normal, of the way things happens over there. There's no pain. There's mostly enjoyment in the heavenly planets. And so she didn't know what to do. She was a little girl and she didn't know what to do. So she put the little baby, took the little baby and put him in a basket, and with a very heartbroken condition, she was very, very heartbroken because she didn't want to part with the first child. So she just let him go on the Ganges, and the little basket was floating, and she let it go, and she didn't know where it went, but her heart was very, very broken at that point. And then it says that she then grew. Nobody knew the secret. It was actually a secret. And she was married to King Pandu, and King Pandu was a very great king and very great devotee as well. And he had two wives, Kunti and Madri. And unfortunately, due to a curse, he could not have a child. In other words, he could not have a child. And so he was one day hunting, and he was, at that time, he was looking, he thought there was a deer, but actually it was a Brahmana who was uniting with his wife to have a child. And he killed the Brahmana, and the wife cursed him, saying that you will never have a child, because anytime you're going to approach your wife for a child, you're just going to die. So Pandu told Kunti that we need children, so you should approach these demigods and we will have children. So he said, and of course Kunti was not so much in favor, but Pandu insisted. So this is how they had, Arjuna and Yudhishthir, Arjuna, and yeah, isn't it just Yudhishthir and Arjuna, and then Nakul and Sahadev came from the Ashwini Kumars, didn't they? Yeah, okay. So this, yeah, okay. So this is what happened, and so she had these sons, and then of course we know the story of how Pandu died, unfortunately, as he approached Madhuri one day to have a child, and they were left widows. And Madhuri took Sati, where she, gave up her life, but Kunti stayed back because she had to take care of somebody. One of them had to take care of the children. So her story is a very, very heart rending in terms of her life after that, after her husband died. And her children grew up in the royal household, but not with her husband as the king, but Dhritarashtra, who was the brother of Pandu. Now, Dhritarashtra was blind, so he was not meant to be king. But after King Pandu died prematurely, he became king, and he had very ambitious plans to make his own son Duryodhan king. And so that started a whole saga of intense rivalry and hatred, and planning and plotting of how to get rid of the Pandavas, even when they were children. And I mean, her story is so heart-rending in terms of a painful situation of what she went through to raise her children all by herself in a household which was infested with these sharks, these envious people who were wanting to kill them. So you can imagine, what a mother went through, what Kunti went through. And so, and then of course we know all the calamities that she goes through in terms of what they put the Pandavas through, try to burn them, try to kill them, they try to poison Bhima, and all these horrible ways they tried to kill them. And Kunti went through all that, and then of course we know that how their enmity grew and grew, where Duryodhan was refusing to give Pandavas any share of the kingdom, and that eventually there was no compromise, and that led to this big war of Kurukshetra, right? And so here we read in the last chapter how everybody was mourning for the death of all the relatives. It was a big disaster. Many millions of people were killed, and they were there mourning for that. And then as the Pandavas, it is said, were coming back, Kunti stopped them and said, wait a minute, actually you haven't finished the rights of everyone. And Yudhishthira Maharaj said, well, what do you mean? We've done the rights of every one of our family members. And Yudhishthira was completely sure of that, having a nature like being so careful, caring, and so careful about what his dharma was. And he had all of them walk across the field a long ways to this place where Karna's body was lying down. And Karna's, his neck was, cut and on one side, lying there. And Kunti broke down, when she saw Karna in that condition. And then she gave the whole story of how she was, he was the brother, of their first brother. And he said, and then she told the Pandavas all the story of how she had left him, abandoned him, and how later on she even went to him and begged him to actually come back, join the brothers, because the brothers would give him the throne and make him the king happily and support him. But he refused. And the reason why he refused is because Duryodhan, he had given his promise to Duryodhan that he would be faithful to him. So he did not want to break that vow. But actually, I found out when reading on this about the story that actually Karna, when he met Queen Kunti, he was very shaken up, and he started feeling a lot of motherly love for his mother, because all his life he was looking for his mother, and he promised her that he would not kill any of her sons except for Arjuna. And I actually said during the war, when the fighting was going on, that Yudhishthir, Nakul, Sahadev, and they were all just, he had put the sword right at their neck, and they were going to be finished, and he left all of them and did not kill them because of his promise. And he told Kunti, that his mother, that actually I love them, I love my brothers, and I will spare them because I actually love them very much. And his heart was breaking. Karna's heart was breaking, actually. And then, of course, when Arjuna's turn came, he would have killed Arjuna. Actually, he would have killed Arjuna. But Krishna, so who interfered? Krishna. Had it not been for Krishna, he would have been dead. So everybody was very afraid of Karna, really, really afraid, because he was more powerful than Arjuna. Everybody knew that nobody could beat Arjuna in terms of his archery, but he was better. One time when Dronacharya was doing a big, what do you call that, show on which was finally testing their prowess, then Arjuna defeated everybody. It was a friendly thing, but it was meant to show that how he had trained all his disciples in archery and all types of combat. And Arjuna, of course, was winning, clear winning. And at that time, suddenly from the other side, there was a whole volley of arrows that came and defeated all the, broke all the arrows of Arjuna. And they looked around and they saw Karna there, So it's said that Karna was predicted. And so all their life, when Kunti told Yudhishthira that he's your brother, he could not believe him. He says, all my life, he was our biggest enemy, and we all hated him, and we all wanted to see him die, because we always knew that he was the only one who could kill Arjuna. And so they always wanted, and today you're telling me that he's my brother. The Pandavas at that point, they cried and they cried and they cried. I mean, the mourning became 10 times as much. And they left that Ganges, near the Ganges, so heartbroken. All the joy of victory and getting the throne, they did not even experience that. Their heart was heavy, especially Kunti's heart. Can you imagine what she went through? This is just to show you the things that she went through, the calamities. So it's kind of a nice point that how when we go through sufferings in this world, we can think of Kunti, if somebody could have gone through all the sufferings and Krishna protected her at every step, and yet she was able to tolerate everything, then, surely we can do a little bit of what we get. It's just a little ratio what she got in her life, right? And so she's leaving us with a huge lesson, a huge lesson in life, that how to always seek shelter of the Lord. Both she and Draupadi, because they and that's what she's saying. She's saying that as long as we had calamities, you're giving us shelter. Now, who's going to give us shelter? Because we tend to cry out to Krishna when we have problems, right? So she didn't want she wanted more and more calamities. That's why, because her life was full of calamities. So, so this is the story of Kunti. Before I go on a bit more, anybody has any questions at this point or comments?
I was thinking how the story of Karna.
Mm-hmm.
It's a lot of feedback.
I don't know.
It shows how our enemy may be our friend, or our enemy may be our brother.
Yes.
In other words, Karna
nice
was really someone the Pandavas did not like, and that person was other.
Yeah. We don't know who that person is. Before we end up making enmity with somebody, we should think about it, And yeah. Well, being friends or enemies is just the illusory potency of the Lord, it has nothing, you know, as spirit souls, we have no enemies or friends. I mean, we are, you know, impartial to everyone. So in that sense, yeah, it's a very nice point, Gopal, that we can take away from this story. Any other comments? Okay. So I was thinking I'm going to do something.
One clarification, Mataji.
Yes.
The Virata war of Virat, like, you know, when they were finishing the 13 years of exile, like Arjuna was the only one who was fighting the whole Kauravas army, and including Karna in that one. And Arjuna won over the war single-handedly. And the reason Karna gave losing the war was because he did not bring his own bow to the war. Kind of like I read that in a Chaitanya Charan Prabhu's article, how Karna, like Chaitanya Charan Prabhu was giving a lot of examples where Karna was not equal to Arjuna. So like it seems like, you know, Arjuna is a great like warrior, and Karna is also a great warrior, but Prabhuji's conclusion was Arjuna is greater than Karna or something like that.
Yeah. Oh, definitely. Arjun's devotion to Krishna made him a far greater person and a devotee. That was the difference. Now, Karna was far more, you know, expert in archery than Arjuna, but Arjuna became a devotee of higher caliber. So that's why he's glorified instead of Karna. And Karna also took the wrong side, which was in a way, it was his mistake, in a way you can say. But it was meant to be, because Krishna had to do this pastime. So how else he would have done, right? So yeah, because Karna, he was definitely a man of his word. You know, he was a worshiper of the sun god, because he was the son of the sun god himself, right? So, but he never knew that. He was the son of a carpenter, because he was adopted by this carpenter, right? So he didn't know, but he had great tendency to worship the sun god, and he was a man of his word. And the way the demigods, you know, remember Arjuna was the son of Indra. So Indra was very, very restless, because Karna was too powerful. So he tried to finish his power. One day he came and asked him to give his kavach and his kundala, where all the power was. You know, it was like, you know, it was part of his body. And, you know, and Karna took a sword and he cut his kundala and he cut his kavach, and blood was coming out. And he fulfilled the, you know, the desire of Indra. You know, he was such a man of valor and honor and word, you know. He was not an ordinary person, you know. But see how we measure people. How do we measure people is through their devotion, their chastity to Krishna, right? So that's why Arjuna is always considered, you know, higher. You know, that's how we measure. I mean, anytime we want to see the caliber of a devotee, we just see how intimate Krishna is with them. And then we can put them in that hierarchy, you know, where they should be. So we see that how Arjuna was Krishna's friend, and how they reacted, but not Karna, right? So even though we feel bad, you know, how people will come out with this, why did they was so mean to Karna? You know, they feel like it was not just what happened to Karna. First of all, he was killed in a behind the back, right? So people are feeling very, they feel very bad that how could the Pandavas have done that? So how can Pandavas be called moral, right? But the point is that because the person is judged, you know, by their devotion to Krishna. You know, Krishna wanted this to happen, and Krishna and such a person who's devoted to Krishna, he is considered. He may not have as many qualities in terms of dharma, you know, but following dharma, but yet because of his devotion, he's considered a lot higher. Anybody?
one more thing,
Go ahead.
yeah, one more thing, Mataji. And he was supporting the adharmic people like Duryodhana.
Yes.
So that was another reason. Oh, even
Yes.
Krishna, he
Yes.
wanted him to come back to the Pandavas, but he refused. Karna refused. Yeah. And was he also called
Yeah,
as
that's
charitable person? No, Mataji? Was a generous
yes.
and
Oh, yeah.
charitable person.
Mhm.
Karna.
He was definitely known as charitable because anybody who came during the time when he would be worshipping the sun god, he would give whatever that person wanted. So that's when Indra came to ask for the kundala and kavach.
Okay.
You know, because he knew, Indra knew that if he could get that kundala and kavach, his power will be gone. You know, he would not be so powerful. He was very cunning. You know how Indra always gets very restless when he feels like his position of power will be taken away. So he does all kinds of things. So so he managed. And then Kunti came the second time. Then Kunti came later as he was worshipping. Because as the war started getting very intense, and she could understand that Karna, because when Bhishma died and he was on this bed of arrows, then Duryodhan asked Karna to take over the commander in chief of the army. Karna said he was not going to lead the army as long as Bhishma was doing. He never got along with Bhishma because Bhishma would always try to chastise him. Bhishma knew the secret that he was Kunti's first son. So Bhishma was always chastising him and encouraging him to come on the Pandava side. So he never liked Bhishma. So when Bhishma, was on the bed of arrows and he became the commander in chief, then he was. I forgot the point I was making. Anyway, what was the point I was making? Gopal, you remember? Forgot.
The point was that
yes.
that he was being
Karna
called
is
to join his son.
Yeah. Huh? Karna what?
Karna was charitable and he was giving anything that someone asked for during the time of he worshipping sun god.
Yeah. So So at that time, Kunti, when she knew, yes, that's the point I was making. When Kunti knew that it was going to get very, very intense, and her sons, she was very attached to her 4 sons, and when they may die, especially Arjuna may die, then she went to Karna at that point, and he was worshiping the sun god also, and he told them, then she revealed to him that I'm your mother, and please don't kill them. You see, that's when she also went during that time when he was worshiping the sun god, and so he promised her, okay, I won't kill your sons, but I have to kill Arjuna. But he could not kill Arjuna because Krishna protected him. You see, so anyway, so again, we should not see Kunti we should not see Kunti as an ordinary woman who's who has filial love for her children. She's not an ordinary woman who has us in a conditioned state. She's a very, very exalted person. Because in one of her prayers, she's asking Krishna to sever her connection with her children. Now, why is she asking them? She knew very well that Pandavas were, devotees of Krishna, but she's asking Krishna to sever their relationship because she understands that her connection with them is also based on the level of the skin, and of the body, right? So she's praying to Krishna in that way, that whatever is there, please take that, because she wants to have undivided love for the Lord, devotion to the Lord. And therefore she's considered a very chaste woman. Real chastity means that one is chaste to Krishna in spite of all difficulties, and that's not easy. And so we see that how, in spite of all the difficulties she faced, her chastity was one pointedly towards Krishna. So she's very glorified in that way. And we see other stories in the Shastras also. There's one particular story where we see another woman who's very chaste to Krishna, where in spite of trouble, her chastity was shown. Anybody remembers any story in the Bhagavatam? Very popular, very famous story.
Draupadi Mataji.
Can you explain further, Sharma? Can you explain a little bit more? Why you think that?
Yeah. When all the Kauravas and Pandavas, they were trying to when they were trying to
to disrobe her, right? Disrobe her.
To disrobe her. And she was surrendering to Krishna. So then Krishna came and gave liberty.
Yes, she cried out to Krishna. She gave up all other process of trying to save herself, and she cried out. Very good. Okay, there's one other another woman who also is shown as very chaste in the Bhagavatam. Queen Suniti in the Dhruva story.
Yeah, Suniti.
Yes. She was inspired. Who said yes? You want to explain that?
Yes, Mataji, it was
Can you
me.
explain what?
Yeah, Suniti, she was a chaste lady, though her other queen was against her, and king was giving more importance to her, but she guided Dhruva in such a way that the main important thing is to pray Lord Vishnu. So she was giving him good education and good proper guidance to him, so that and she was devoted to his wife and his son. That is what I felt, Mataji.
Yeah, she did not hang on to him, and she let him go and find the Lord. Because of her integrity towards, this Krishna consciousness, her chastity towards Krishna, she became very glorified in spite of the fact that she was, not treated well by the king at all, So that's, so we have some very good examples in the Shastras. And I was now going to share the screen, and I would like you to, I'd like you to do something fun with you all. So Gopal, can you come and help me? Gopal?
Mataji, I had a quick question, if that's okay.
Yes, of course.
I think it's a really kind of simpler question. I don't think it should take long. I just was wondering if you could briefly elaborate on why it's so offensive to Kshatriyas, what happened to Arjuna, cutting his hair, and I was just curious if you could elaborate. That way I could have a better understanding as why exactly it's so important to them.
Okay, well, because it's very, very, insulting, if somebody's hair is cut in that way, right? So it was a way to kill his, his self-esteem, but without actually killing his physical body.
I was just curious because, I wasn't sure. Obviously, self-esteem is very important, but we're also, not just the physical body, but I mean, being inside the physical body and having such an important position as Arjuna, I can understand why it would be offensive.
Yeah, it feels very kind of cruel, but considering that he was meant to be killed, he was meant to be killed. I mean, it was actually very, very merciful act, considering that, even the saintly people, they rejoice when a snake is killed. Why? Because a snake is considered very, very envious in terms of, if you feed the snake milk, then it will bite the hand of the person who's feeding the milk. So this is the only animal that is killed. One is, feeling okay about it, feeling good. So in other words, recognition of the act, of the gruesome act, is recognized in the Vedic, scenario, because it has to be, it has to be properly dealt with,
And it was meant to hurt. Sorry.
Yeah, this is what's bothering you, right? Why it was meant to be like this, right?
I was just trying to completely understand if it was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. Yeah. It's a very, sensitive thing. Yeah, very difficult thing. But yeah, so this is, I was thinking that I would just read to you the story. It's only 2 pages long because we don't have the time to go through with it in the book itself, right? So we can just go through it. It's a short summary of this chapter. Okay, so I'll just read to you. And so please just enjoy it. It's written actually for children, but not very small children, so you will enjoy that. Okay, so this is the story, 8th chapter. Okay, now 8th chapter is kind of divided into 2 parts. The Parikshit, the first part is about Parikshit being saved by Krishna. Like I told you the story of how Krishna entered the womb of Uttara and saved him. And the second part is Kunti's prayers. Okay, so after chasing away the dishonored Ashwatthama, the Pandava family went to the holy Ganges river to offer water to their dead relatives. They mourned deeply for their loss and then bathed there before sitting on the river bank. Oh, they were so sad. Lord Krishna and the sages tried to pacify them. Please don't despair, said Lord Krishna and the sages to the Pandava family. This is the material world. Your cousins are very immoral, so their lives in these bodies ended earlier. But everyone is born and dies in this world. Nobody lives here forever. You can only live happily forever in the spiritual world if you always engage in loving devotional service. So they all got up and went back home. The terrible war was over. The Pandavas now had their kingdom back, thanks to Lord Shri Krishna. And King Yudhishthira was famous throughout the entire world for being virtuous, so virtuous, after performing 3 Ashwamedha Yagya horse sacrifices. Lord Krishna was now ready. Oops. Lord Krishna was now ready to go back to his own city of Dwarka. The Brahmanas, led by Vyasadeva, worshipped him as they bid him farewell. Then Krishna sat on his chariot, ready to leave. All of a sudden, he saw Uttara hurrying towards him. She looked so scared. Krishna, Krishna, she cried, "O Lord of the universe, you're all powerful. Please protect me. There's a fiery iron arrow chasing me. You wanted to burn me, I don't mind, but please save my baby in my womb. Please do me this favor, my Lord." Lord Krishna, who's always very affectionate. Devi Murti, you need to mute yourself. Devi Murti, Haribo. Yeah. Please save my baby in my womb. Please do me this favor, my Lord. Lord Krishna, who is always very affectionate to his devotees, patiently heard Uttara's humble request. He thought, it is that Ashwatthama who has released his fiery iron arrow. He's still trying to take revenge and kill the Pandavas' family. The 5 Pandavas saw the fiery arrow called the Brahmastra coming towards them, and so they took up their weapons to try to counteract it. When Lord Krishna saw that his beloved devotees were in danger, he at once took up his Sudarshan disc to protect them. The mystical Lord also went inside Uttara's womb and personally covered and protected the baby. They were all saved. Everyone was relieved and grateful to Lord Krishna, especially Queen Kunti. She offered him many prayers. So the second part is prayers by Queen Kunti. There's a little poem here. As Mother Kunti watched Krishna's wondrous act, she worried now he would leave and never again come back. Indeed, his splendid chariot stood ready to depart. So approaching her beloved Krishna, Kunti spoke her heart. And this is actually from Kalakanta Prabhu's book. And that's the place where Brandy is gone, right? This is from his book, very nice book, okay. My dear Lord Krishna, she said gently, please don't go. I know you're everywhere, but no one can see this because you're invisible. Even seeing you here, this material world is like a curtain. Therefore, some people foolishly can't see that you're the Supreme Personality of Godhead. She continued, you came to this material world to teach the self-realized sages how to love you. Then, with tears in her eyes, she looked at Lord Krishna and asked, but how can I know you? I'm merely a woman. Then, remembering Krishna as a sweet little cowherd boy, she began to smile and prayed. All I can do is simply bow down to you as the son of Vasudeva, who brings happiness to his mother, Devaki. Oh Govinda, you are the darling of Vrindavan, and you bring pleasure to the cows and to our senses. She continued, You're our hero, Krishna. You rescued your mother Devaki from that dark, cold prison cell of the evil King Kamsa. And you saved my sons and me so many times, such as when my son Bhima was given a cake with poison in it, and when our house was set afire, and when ghastly man-eating demons tried to eat us, and even when the Kurus tried to disrobe Draupadi. Even throughout this terrible battle, you protected us, and now again from Ashwatthama's fiery arrow. He thoughtfully added, I wish all these dangers could come to us again and again, because when we get to see you again and again, and then we will always be happy. And if we try to be happy in this material world, we won't be able to see you because we won't be able to approach you with the same feeling. Some people think that your devotees are your favorite people, but that's just their imagination. Because I know you love everyone equally and you give everyone your loving mercy equally. They're probably confused because in your pastimes, you act like a normal human being, like when Mother Yashoda bound you with ropes when you were a little boy. It is amazing, Krishna, that you were crying and scared like a child, but actually even the feared demigod is scared of you. How can this be? You're truly amazing, my Lord. Mother Kunti could not stop glorifying her dear Lord Krishna. Anyone who continuously hears about you, talks about you, tells others about you, or even feels happy seeing others do this, will definitely be able to see your lotus feet and will never have to take birth or die again. Oh Krishna, you're really leaving us today? Leaving us even though you know we need you and are completely dependent on your mercy. There's no one else to protect us. Everything we have is because of you. When you leave, everything good will go. Our kingdom appears beautiful as it is being marked by the impressions of your lotus feet. But if you leave it, it will no longer be so. Please cut my attachment to this world and let me just be attracted to you and nothing else. Just like the Ganges River flows to the sea without anything stopping her. After hearing Mother Kunti's loving prayers, Lord Krishna simply smiled at her. Oh children, this smile was so enchanting and magical. He then entered the palace to bid farewell to the other ladies. Then as he was about to leave, he was stopped again, but this time by Yudhishthira Maharaj. Yudhishthira Maharaj was still very upset because so many of his friends and relatives had to die on the battlefield. Oh Krishna, I'm so sinful, he cried. My body is meant to serve others, but I used it to kill so many people. There's nothing I can do to make everything better. You can't clean muddy water with mud or a wine-stained pot with wine. Therefore, I can't undo the killing of men by sacrificing horses. Poor Yudhishthira Maharaj felt very disturbed. So this is the whole chapter in summary. And in the next chapter, you will hear about the passing of Bhishma Dev and Yudhishthira Maharaj's dilemma being resolved by Bhishma Dev, who counsels him and helps him get over this great sorrow that he's feeling to see all his family members and other soldiers dead because of, he considers this because of his reason, because of him, so that he could be on the throne. But really, it wasn't that. This war was meant to be by the desire of the Lord, because Krishna always wants virtue to win over vice, and he makes it a point to do that, to take steps towards that. So I've already taken a lot of time. So if anybody has any comments or questions at this point,
This is very beautiful. This summary, this narration is just summed up that chapter very nicely. I was going to ask you, actually, do you want to do one of the exercises you have? Just one of them?
Yeah, I wasn't sure about the time, Gopal, so I didn't do
we
it.
don't have time, but just one. You can do one, maybe one short one.
Oh, some activity. Okay, it's fun. Yeah. Well, there was some key themes, but I think everybody kind of got that. Yeah. Well, I could ask some fun multiple choice questions. Do you think, Gopal, that would be a good one?
Yes.
Yes.
Quiz time.
Get quiz time, everybody. So now we will see how much attention everybody was paying to this story. That's fun. This is how we do for children. But it really also helps a lot of us adults, because we get review of the story. That's what it helps for. Okay. So the first question, and this got 3 choices, and you have to give me the right choice. Okay. From which river did the Pandavas offer water to their dead relatives? Yamuna, Ganga, or Saraswati?
Ganga.
Good. Very good. There's some child there. What did the Pandavas do after reaching the bank of the river? Went for a bath, went for a swim, went boating?
Went for a bath.
Went for a bath.
Okay. Who tried to pacify the Pandavas? Dhritarashtra, Shukadeva Goswami, Lord Krishna, and the sages.
Lord Krishna.
Lord Krishna and the sages.
The cousins of the Pandavas are moral, immoral, or saintly?
Immoral.
Very good. Everybody born in this material world dies. True, false, sometimes.
True.
Okay. Who was very famous throughout the world after performing 3-horse sacrifice?
King
Ashwatthama?
Yudhishthira.
Lord Krishna was ready to go to his own city, Vrindavan, Dwarka, Mathura.
Dwarka.
Okay. Who worshipped Lord Krishna when he was leaving for Dwarka? Vyasadeva, Shukadeva Goswami, or Sutta Goswami?
Vyasadeva.
Okay. Who was running towards Krishna when he was preparing to leave? Kunti, Draupadi, Uttara?
Queen Kunti.
Uttara.
Uttara. Yeah.
Who fired the iron arrow to kill the baby in the womb of Uttara?
Ashwatthama.
What was the fiery iron arrow called? Narayanastra, Brahmastra?
Brahmastra.
What did the Pandavas do when they saw they were all in danger? They ran away, fired the Brahmastra on Ashwatthama.
Took up the weapons to
counteract it.
Yeah, okay. Govinda means one who brings happiness to the cows, rivers, or sages. Krishna saved his mother Devaki from the Brahmastra, the cold
prison cellar.
Oh my God, all of you are just too sharp. Okay. Okay, I'm going to skip. So another higher thinking question. If you met Maharaj Yudhishthira at the time when he was feeling really guilty, what would you say to him?
Repeat the question, Mataji.
If you met Maharaj Yudhishthira at the time he was really feeling really guilty, what would you say to him?
That it was not really in his control, it was in Krishna's control, and he did everything he could do.
Yes. So this is more, and the second question is more about the summary I read. So it'll be, so why do you think that Queen Kunti mentioned in her prayers that one who is on the path of material progress, trying to improve himself with respectable parentage, great opulence, high education, and bodily beauty, cannot approach the Lord with sincere feeling?
Because they get proud of their possessions and they cannot approach God with pure heart.
Yes. Yeah, they get very proud. Very, very proud. Yes. Give one incident in Queen Kunti's life which was the most challenging.
When the house burnt down.
Okay, Gaurav. Good.
When
I think that was very...
when she the first child, when it was born, she just
Yes.
They were saved from the wax palace.
You mean pardon? Okay. Pardon? I didn't hear the last one.
They were saved from the wax palace.
Okay, yes. So 2 of you said that. So we kind of, we can say that was the most trying for her, maybe. Yeah. And also Karna was very, very heartbreaking for her. So if Arjuna was convinced by Lord Krishna that the battle of Kurukshetra was necessary, well, yeah, I think we should stop here. It's getting very late, I think, for all of you. Okay. So any last comments before we end this?
Thank you, Mataji. This was wonderful.
Thank you.
Even though I'm not a child, this was very helpful for me. Thank you so much.
Yeah, we are creating these, we are creating resources for every chapter of the Bhagavatam, and this is a teamwork of about 20 parents throughout the world. We are getting together and creating resources for every chapter so that the children can also have a systematic study of the Srimad Bhagavatam, just like adults. So we need all your encouragement and all your blessings, all of you, so that we can continue this work. Thank you very much.
It's very nice program, so that we could know all the questions. I mean, the recap of all the whole Sangha. So it's really nice.
Well, if you ever, there's a lot of adults who are also using the book because it makes the Bhagavatam simpler and easier to understand. So these books are available on Amazon if anybody would like to, get them for the children or for yourselves. So, okay. Thank you very much, everyone, for,
Thank you, Mataji. It was amazing. I loved every second of it.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
So now, before everyone leaves, remember we have our meeting now. So don't leave right now. We're going to have just a quick, short meeting. But before we start the meeting, we can give 3 loud Haribol.